You don't always realize when your life is about to change forever, but your energy shifts first, quietly, and if you're paying attention, you'll notice the signs. There comes a time when life no longer fits the way it used to. You wake up and something feels different. You can't name it, but it's there. The same routines feel heavier. The same conversations feel repetitive. The things that used to matter seem to fade. And beneath it all, there is a new clarity rising from within you. It's not loud or dramatic. It's subtle, steady, and deep. You begin to notice that your soul is no longer interested in surviving. It wants to grow, to evolve, to expand. This stage of life doesn't begin with an event. It begins with awareness, an internal awakening that whispers through your body, your thoughts, your energy. And from that moment on, you're never quite the same. Because once your soul decides it's time to grow, your old life begins to fall apart with purpose. Here are 7 powerful signs that you are stepping into the best stage of your life. And it begins the moment you stop running from yourself and start returning home. Sign 1. You stop needing validation from others. You may not have realized how often you lived for the approval of others, how many choices you made to avoid judgment, how many things you said just to keep the peace, how often you held your truth back to be accepted. You molded yourself into shapes that weren't yours, all for the comfort of being liked. But something inside you shifts. You no longer crave approval like oxygen. You don't need constant reassurance. You're not waiting for someone else to tell you that you're enough. You begin to trust your own sense of truth, even when others don't see it. You stop explaining yourself to those who never really listened. You stop seeking validation from people who never really valued you. It's not because you think you're better. It's because you finally know your worth. You've spent years outsourcing your sense of self. Now, you're learning to reclaim it. You become your own mirror, your own confirmation, your own compass. And with that shift, the way you move through the world changes. You speak less, but with more clarity. You show up more authentically, even if it makes others uncomfortable. You no longer dilute yourself to be digestible. You no longer perform to be praised. You simply are. And in that space, you begin to attract people who recognize your truth instead of your mask. You draw in those who feel safe with your clarity, not intimidated by it. The relationships in your life deepen, not because you tried harder, but because you finally stopped pretending. This kind of self-validation isn't loud. It's not aggressive. It's calm. It's grounded. It's quiet confidence. And it marks the beginning of a whole new relationship with yourself. Sign 2. You embrace discomfort as a path, not a problem. For most of your life, discomfort was a signal to stop. If something felt hard, you assumed it meant you were on the wrong path. If something triggered fear, you called it a warning. You were taught that pain was dangerous, that confusion was failure, that uncertainty meant you should turn around. But now, you're starting to understand that discomfort is sacred, that pain isn't always punishment, that uncertainty isn't always a sign to run. It's a sign to slow down, breathe, and pay attention. You begin to see discomfort as an invitation, not to suffer, but to evolve. You no longer resist the lessons life brings when things feel heavy. You no longer rush to escape the in-between. You begin to sit with the tension of becoming, with the stretching of your identity, with the death of your old patterns. Growth doesn't feel like peace at first. It feels like confusion. It feels like pulling weeds from a garden you once loved. It feels like confronting the version of you that was built on survival. And that's not easy, but it's necessary. And now, instead of asking how to get out of discomfort, you ask what it's trying to show you. You listen to your triggers, you observe your reactions, you pay attention to the parts of you that still need care. You stop blaming the world for your pain and start holding space for your own healing. This is when your inner world begins to reorganize. You no longer see discomfort as something to avoid. You see it as a sacred doorway, and every time you step through it with grace, you step further into who you truly are. Sign 3. Your definition of success no longer looks like the world star. At one point, you thought success was about winning, about achieving, about keeping score. You chased metrics that didn't feed your soul. You followed a path that looked right from the outside, but felt hollow on the inside. You played the game, you performed, you accomplished, and you were exhausted. Now, you're rethinking everything. You're no longer interested in performing success. You want to live it, not in titles, but in peace, not in status, but in freedom, not in numbers, but in depth. You start redefining success on your own terms. A slow morning with coffee and no rush. Saying no without guilt. Laughing without needing a reason. Creating without needing applause. Feeling safe in your own skin. Trusting your own voice. You begin to ask better questions. What feels meaningful to me? What kind of life feels honest? What brings me peace, not just productivity? Success becomes less about what you earn and more about how you feel. It becomes less about comparison and more about alignment. You stop looking sideways, you look inward. You begin to let go of goals that aren't yours. You stop chasing dreams that never belonged to you. You stop proving yourself to people who are not even paying attention. And the more you define success through authenticity, the more your life begins to align with who you truly are. You start to move slower but deeper. You begin to make decisions not based on fear, but based on truth. This is when you realize that the best stage of your life isn't built by climbing higher, it's built by rooting deeper. You no longer chase what's popular, you cultivate what's personal. You stop trying to impress, you begin to express. This new definition of success brings a level of calm that achievement never could. It brings a sense of fulfillment that applause never gave you, because you're no longer trying to fit into a life that wasn't designed for your soul. You're building a life from the inside out, and in that quiet, steady construction, something profound happens. You finally begin to feel free. If your soul feels like it's already moving ahead of your mind, it's time to follow it. Explore the JUNG method and start living in alignment. The link is in the first comment. Sign 4. You start honoring your intuition over logic. There was a time when logic ruled everything. You needed facts, proof, and certainty before making a move. You were taught to think through every decision, to plan for every risk, to silence the voice inside you if it didn't come with a clear explanation. Intuition felt too vague, too soft, too untrustworthy. So you ignored it. But now, something shifts. You begin to notice the quiet knowing within you, the part of you that senses before it understands, the gut feeling that nudges you in a direction even when your mind disagrees, the deep inner resonance that tells you what is right even if it makes no sense on paper. You stop brushing off your instincts as foolish. You stop asking for external validation when something inside you already knows. You begin to follow the energy of things, how people make you feel, how your body responds when you walk into a room, how a conversation either expands you or depletes you, and the more you trust it, the stronger it becomes. It begins to guide you. You stop forcing what doesn't feel aligned. You start saying no to things that look good but feel wrong. You learn to walk away without needing to explain. You let your inner compass lead, not because you have all the answers, but because your soul does. This is a powerful moment. You begin to merge your inner world with your outer choices. You are no longer living from the surface. You are responding from depth. And in that space, everything becomes more aligned, more peaceful, more real. Sign 5. You release the need to fix or save others. You used to carry the weight of everyone around you. You felt responsible for their happiness, their healing, their stability. You thought love meant rescuing. You poured yourself into empty cups. You silenced your own pain to hold space for theirs. You thought that being needed was the same as being loved at, but now, you see clearly, you are not here to carry people who refuse to walk. You are not here to sacrifice your peace for someone else's comfort. You understand that healing is personal, that growth cannot be forced, that love is not martyrdom. You begin to hold compassion without enabling. You set boundaries without guilt. You stop trying to convince people to rise. You stop bleeding for those who won't stop their own wounding. You allow others their path, their timing, their process, and in doing so, you reclaim your own energy. You use it to build, not to rescue. You use it to grow, not to chase. You begin to surround yourself with people who take ownership of their lives, who meet you in reciprocity, who know how to hold space for you too. You understand now that love is not about losing yourself. It's about standing beside someone without shrinking. It's about supporting without saving. It's about being present without self-abandonment. And when you let go of the need to fix others, you begin to heal the part of you that believed you had to earn your place through sacrifice. You begin to rest in the truth that you are worthy, even when you're not saving anyone. Sign 6. You become deeply protective of your peace. There was a time when you let chaos live in your life. You allowed people to disturb your energy. You tolerated gossip, drama, and tension. You said yes when you meant no. You stayed in rooms where your spirit was suffocating. But now, peace is your priority. You guard it not with aggression, but with intention. You no longer allow your energy to be drained by things that don't matter. You don't explain your boundaries, you live them. You don't negotiate your worth, you embody it. You begin to notice how much noise you used to accept, how much tension you called normal, how often you confused stimulation for connection, and you let it all go. You choose environments that nourish you. You walk away from people who trigger survival in your nervous system. You choose solitude over forced socialization. You choose stillness over stimulation. You no longer chase things that disrupt your inner world. You build a life that feels soft, spacious, and sacred. A life that breathes. A life that fits your nervous system like a warm coat. And when people ask why you've changed, you smile. Because peace doesn't need to be explained. It is its own language. And when you start protecting your peace, you begin to live in a different rhythm. Life slows down. Time expands. You feel present, grounded, rooted. And from that place, everything flows better. Sign 7. You realize the best is not coming. It's already inside you. You spent years thinking happiness was somewhere else. In the next relationship, in the next job, in the next city. You lived with a quiet hunger, always chasing, always reaching, always waiting for something outside of you to make you feel whole. But now, you stop, you exhale. You realize that what you were searching for was never out there. It was always inside. Your peace, your joy, your wholeness. They are not destinations. They are homecomings. You stop rushing toward the future. You stop dragging the past behind you. You arrive in the now. And you realize this moment is enough. Not because it's perfect, but because it's real. Because you are finally here, in your body, in your truth, in your life. You begin to feel grateful for the simplest things. A quiet morning, a soft song, a full breath. You stop comparing. You start noticing. You find beauty in what is, not just in what could be. And in this awareness, you understand that the best stage of your life is not about what you achieve. It's about what you awaken. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you are. You stop waiting for joy. You create it. You stop chasing love. You embody it. You stop seeking purpose. You live it. And in that moment, your life becomes sacred. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are finally present for it. Fully, deeply, honestly. You are not stepping into the best stage of your life because of anything external. You are stepping into it because you finally made space for your soul to lead. And that changes everything.